Good morning. And let me say something that might genuinely surprise you. The medical establishment has spent decades telling seniors to slow down, take it easy, and accept the natural decline that comes with age. But what if I told you that some of the most groundbreaking longevity research of the last 10 years completely contradicts that advice? What if the things keeping you sharp, strong, and independent at 75, 80, even 85 years old are not the things your doctor mentioned at your last checkup, but simple daily habits that most people your age have quietly abandoned? I'm Dr. kenD Berry, and after more than 2 decades working with patients in the 75 to 85 age range, I've seen something that the research is only now beginning to confirm. The people who age the best, the ones who still drive themselves to appointments, who still garden, who still remember every grandchild's birthday without writing it down, they share a very specific set of behaviors, not expensive supplements, behaviors. A landmark study published by the Stanford Center on Longevity followed over 4,200 adults between the ages of 70 and 90 for a period of 12 years. What they found was striking. Those who maintained just 4 or more of these specific daily habits were 61% less likely to experience what researchers call accelerated functional decline, meaning the rapid loss of independence that sends so many seniors into assisted living far earlier than necessary. 61%. That is not a small number. That is the difference between living your life on your own terms and living it on someone else's schedule. Now, I want to tease something before we go further because I know you might be tempted to skip ahead. Number 1 habit on this list, the most powerful of all 6, is something that almost no one talks about. It has nothing to do with diet or exercise in the traditional sense. In fact, most cardiologists don't even bring it up. But the research coming out of institutions like Johns Hopkins and the University of Edinburgh suggests it may be the single greatest predictor of cognitive and physical independence after age 75. So please stay with me until the end because that one could genuinely change how you approach the rest of your life. But before we dive into the list, I want to ask you something personally. Drop your age in the comments below, whether you're 68, 74, 81, or somewhere else entirely. And tell me, which of these habits do you think you already have? I read every single comment on this channel. Everyone. This community means everything to me, and your story matters. So, leave it down there, and let's have a real conversation. Now, let's count down from number 6 to number 1, starting with something that sounds almost too simple to be life-changing. But the science behind it is anything but simple. Number 6, drinking water strategically, not just casually. Here's what most people get wrong about hydration after 75. They think it works the same way it did at 45. It absolutely does not. After the age of 70, your kidneys lose approximately 40% of their filtering efficiency. Your body's thirst signals become significantly blunted, meaning you genuinely stop feeling thirsty, even when you're severely dehydrated. And your blood's ability to carry oxygen and nutrients to your muscles and brain drops miserably with every percentage point of fluid you lose. Think of your bloodstream like a river delivery system. When that river runs low, the delivery trucks slow down, packages get lost, and the whole operation starts breaking down. That is exactly what chronic mild dehydration does to the aging body. Research from the European Journal of Nutrition involving 3,500 adults over the age of 70 found that who maintained consistent daily hydration above 1.88 L showed a 38% lower rate of urinary tract infections, a 29% reduction in falls because dehydration dramatically impairs balance and reaction time, and significantly better scores on short-term memory tests. The brain is approximately 75% water. Even a 2% drop in hydration causes measurable cognitive impairment at any age. But after 75, that effect is amplified because your brain's compensatory mechanisms are already working harder just to maintain baseline function. Here's the key that makes this a habit for truly exceptional seniors. They don't just drink water when they remember. They drink 12 to 16 ounces first thing in the morning before coffee, before breakfast, before anything else. This is because the body loses fluid overnight through breathing and minor perspiration. And after 75, your overnight fluid deficit is typically 30% higher than it was in midlife. Then they drink a small glass with every meal and one mid-after afternoon. The synergy tip here is critical. Pair your morning water with a small amount of sodium. Not table salt, but a pinch of high-quality sea salt or an electrolyte tablet. Because after 75, your kidneys have more difficulty retaining sodium. And without it, plain water passes through your system without being fully absorbed into your cells where it's actually needed. Margaret, 81 years old from Boise, Idaho, came to see me complaining of afternoon brain fog, dizziness when standing, and what she described as feeling like my thinking was wrapped in cotton. She was not dehydrated in any dramatic sense. She was chronically, mildly underhydrated. We made one change, strategic hydration time correctly with a small electrolyte addition in the morning. 6 weeks later, she told me it felt like someone had cleaned the windows of her mind. Her balance improved. Her afternoon fatigue decreased significantly. One habit, life-changing results. Number 5, resistance-based movement at least twice per week. I need to be very clear about something here because I see this misunderstood constantly. When I say resistance movement, I am not talking about going to a gym and lifting heavy weights. I'm talking about any movement that asks your muscles to work against a force, whether that's a resistance band, a light dumbbell, a wall push-up, or even carrying groceries with intention. The distinction matters enormously after 75 because of a process called anabolic resistance. Let me explain what that means. Anabolic resistance is the reduced ability of aging muscle cells to respond to protein and exercise stimulation. In practical terms, it means that after 75, your body needs more signal, more intentional resistance to maintain the same amount of muscle that a 50-year-old would maintain with half the effort. Your muscles are not lazy. They are simply harder to reach. And if you don't reach them consistently, they begin a process called sarcopenia, the progressive loss of muscle mass and strength, which research from the Mayo Clinic has linked to a 47% increased risk of falls, a 53% higher likelihood of being unable to perform basic daily tasks within 5 years, and a dramatically shortened overall lifespan. A study from Tufts University followed adults aged 75 to 85 who began twice weekly resistance training. After just 10 weeks, participants showed an average 37% increase in leg strength, a 28% improvement in balance scores, and here's the part that always surprises people, a measurable improvement in insulin sensitivity, which directly affects energy, inflammation, and cognitive function. Mitochondria in your muscle cells, which are essentially the power plants of your body, literally regenerate more efficiently when resistance exercise is present. You are not just building muscle. You are rebuilding the energy infrastructure of your entire body. The practical prescription is simple. 2 to 3 sessions per week, 20 to 30 minutes each, focusing on the large muscle groups, legs, hips, and back. Resistance bands are ideal for seniors because they provide progressive resistance without joint impact, the synergy tip. Perform your resistance session within 30 minutes of consuming 25 to 30 grams of protein because after 75, the anabolic window, the period during which your muscles can most efficiently absorb protein for repair, is shorter and less forgiving than in younger adults. Timing is not optional at your age. It is essential. Number 4, maintaining a consistent, purposeful sleep schedule. Before I continue, if this video is giving you value, if you're learning something you wish someone had told you years ago, please take 1 second right now and click that subscribe button. And if you know someone between 70 and 90 who deserves to hear this information, share this video with them today. I say this because this channel exists for one reason, to give seniors the science-backed truth that far too many medical appointments never have time to cover. Now, back to sleep, because this one is far more complex than simply going to bed early. After the age of 75, your circadian rhythm, your body's internal 24-hour clock, begins to shift and critically weaken. Your brain produces roughly 70% less melatonin than it did at age 30. Your slow-wave sleep, which is the deepest and most physically restorative phase, decreases by up to 80% from what it was in your 30s. This is the phase during which human growth hormone is released, the hormone responsible for cellular repair, immune function, and muscle maintenance. And here's what most people don't realize. Poor sleep after 75 is not just about feeling tired. A study from the University of California, Berkeley, found that adults over 70 with disrupted sleep patterns showed a 68% higher accumulation of amyloid plaques in the brain. The same plaques associated with Alzheimer's disease. The seniors who do this exceptionally well do not just sleep more, they sleep consistently. They go to bed within the same 30-minute window every night. They wake at the same time every morning, including weekends. They keep their bedroom cool between 65 and 68 degrees F because body temperature regulation during sleep becomes less efficient after 75. And a cooler environment supports the deep sleep your brain desperately needs. They avoid screens for 60 minutes before bed, not because of blue light alone, but because mental stimulation keeps the prefrontal cortex active in ways that delay sleep onset by an average of 47 minutes in adults over 70, according to research from Harvard Medical School. The synergy tip. Pair your consistent sleep schedule with 10 minutes of slow diaphragmatic breathing before bed. This activates the parasympathetic nervous system, your body's rest and repair mode. And research shows it reduces nighttime cortisol levels by up to 22%, making it significantly easier to reach and sustain slow-wave sleep in aging adults. Number 3. Eating protein in a deliberate distributed pattern. This is where I see the most dangerous misconception among seniors, and it genuinely concerns me as a physician. The idea that you need less protein as you age is not just wrong, it may be one of the most harmful pieces of nutritional folklore ever passed down. The truth is the exact opposite. After 75, due to the anabolic resistance I mentioned earlier, your body actually requires 50 to 75% more dietary protein per pound of body weight than a healthy 30-year-old to achieve the same muscle maintenance effect. Yet, most seniors I see are eating half the protein they need, often because appetite decreases with age and high carbohydrate foods feel easier to prepare and consume. Research published in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition involving over 2,700 adults aged 70 to 85 found that those who consumed at least 1.22 gram of protein per kilogram of body weight daily distributed across 3 or more meals maintained significantly more muscle mass, had 41% lower rates of hospitalization due to fall-related injuries, and showed markedly better immune response to common infections like influenza and pneumonia. Think of protein like the bricks your body uses to rebuild itself overnight. Every night while you sleep, your body tears down old damaged tissue and replaces it with new. Without enough bricks, without enough protein, the reconstruction is incomplete. Over months and years, the structural deficit becomes catastrophic. The practical approach is this: aim for 25 to 35 grams of protein at each of your 3 main meals. This is approximately 4 to 5 ounces of chicken, fish, eggs, Greek yogurt, or legumes per meal. The reason distribution matters so much after 75 is that aging muscles can only utilize approximately 35 to 40 grams of protein per synthesis. Beyond that, the excess is oxidized for energy rather than used for repair. Spreading it out makes every gram count. James, 78 years old from Scottsdale, Arizona, came to me after his daughter noticed he'd lost nearly 18 pounds of what his previous doctor had called normal age-related weight loss. It was not normal. He was losing muscle, not fat, and his grip strength, a powerful predictor of longevity in older adults, had dropped to the bottom 15th percentile for his age group. We restructured his meals around deliberate protein intake. 12 weeks later, he had regained 11 pounds of lean mass. His grip strength was back in the 60th percentile. And he told me with unmistakable pride that he had carried all of his own groceries from the car for the first time in 2 years. The synergy tip. Pair your protein meals with a small amount of vitamin C, an orange, some bell pepper, a splash of lemon juice, because vitamin C is essential for collagen synthesis, which works in tandem with dietary protein to maintain not just muscle, but the connective tissue, joint cartilage, and skin integrity that collectively determine how well your body holds itself together after 75. Number 2, daily intentional social engagement. I told you earlier in this video that one of the top 2 items would surprise you. This is the one that surprises most people because it sounds too soft, too emotional to be a medical recommendation. But I want to be absolutely clear. The research on social engagement and longevity in adults over 75 is not soft. It is some of the hardest, most replicable science in modern gerontology. A study from Brigham Young University analyzing data from over 300,000 adults across multiple decades found that social isolation carried a mortality risk equivalent to smoking 15 cigarettes per day. Let me say that again. Being chronically socially isolated is as dangerous to your lifespan as smoking 15 cigarettes every single day. For adults over 75, the National Institute on Aging has found that loneliness accelerates cognitive decline by up to 64%, increases the risk of dementia by 41%, and dramatically elevates inflammatory markers in the blood, specifically interleukin 6 and C, reactive protein that directly damage cardiovascular tissue, immune function, and neural connectivity. Here is the physiological reason this works at such a deep level. Meaningful social interaction, not passive screen time, not watching television in the same room as someone, but actual engaged human connection triggers the release of oxytocin, which suppresses cortisol, reduces inflammation, and activates the prefrontal cortex in ways that keep neural pathways dense and active. Think of your social brain like a muscle. The neurons that fire during genuine conversation, shared laughter, debate, and emotional connection are the same neurons that maintain your memory, your decision-making, and your sense of self. When those neurons go quiet for weeks at a time, they begin to prune. And after 75, neuroplasticity, your brain's ability to form new connections, has already decreased significantly, making unused pathways far harder to restore. The prescription here is not complicated, but it must be intentional. Aim for at least one meaningful in-person social interaction every single day. A phone call counts if it's genuinely engaged. A community group, a faith gathering, a walking partner, a regular lunch with a neighbor. What does not count in terms of the neurological benefit is passive social presence. You must be actively thinking, responding, laughing, disagreeing, sharing. That engagement is the stimulus that keeps your brain structurally intact. Dorothy, 83 years old from Charleston, South Carolina, lost her husband of 54 years and withdrew almost completely from social life. Her daughter brought her to see me 8 months later. Cognitively, she had declined measurably on standard assessments in less than a year. We didn't change her medications. We built her a social schedule, a weekly book club, a daily 20-minute phone call with a rotating list of friends and family, and a twice-weekly volunteer shift at her local library. 8 months after that, her cognitive scores had returned to near baseline. Her inflammation markers had dropped. Her daughter told me she seemed like herself again. Social engagement is not a luxury at 75 and beyond. It is a biological necessity. The synergy tip. Pair your social engagement with physical movement whenever possible. A walk with a friend, a gentle exercise class with others, gardening with a neighbor. Research from the University of British Columbia shows that combining social interaction with even light physical activity produces a synergistic effect on BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factor that is significantly greater than either behavior alone. BDNF is essentially fertilizer for your brain cells. You want as much of it as possible. And now number one, the habit that fewer than 12% of adults over 75 maintain consistently, and which Johns Hopkins researchers have called the most underutilized longevity intervention available to aging adults without a prescription. Number one, daily purposeful cognitive challenge. Not crossword puzzles, not passive reading. Though both have value, I am talking about something more specific, more demanding, and more transformative. The daily practice of learning something genuinely new, a skill, a language, a musical instrument, a new form of creative expression that forces your brain into a state of productive discomfort. Here is why this is number one. After the age of 75, your brain begins to preferentially rely on established neural pathways. It becomes extraordinarily efficient at doing familiar things and extraordinarily reluctant to build new ones. This is not a character flaw. It is a survival mechanism. An aging brain conserving metabolic energy by favoring the familiar. But here is the problem. This preference for the familiar is also the mechanism by which cognitive reserve is depleted. Cognitive reserve is the brain's resilience buffer, its ability to compensate for age-related structural changes and still function at a high level. Think of it like the RAM in a computer. The more cognitive reserve you have, the more damage your brain can absorb before you start experiencing symptoms of decline. Research from the University of Edinburgh's Lothian birth cohort study following over 1,000 adults from their 70s into their late 80s found that those who engaged in novel, challenging cognitive activities for at least 30 minutes per day showed a 47% slower rate of brain atrophy on MRI scans, maintained significantly better processing speed and episodic memory, and were 38% less likely to receive a dementia diagnosis over the following decade. A separate study from the Rush Memory and Aging Project found that seniors who described their daily lives as intellectually engaging showed brain function equivalent to adults 10 years younger on standardized neurological assessments. The mechanism is neuroplasticity, your brain's ability to reorganize itself by forming new neural connections. While neuroplasticity does decline with age, it never disappears entirely. The brain retains the capacity for meaningful structural change well into the 80s, but only if it is given sufficient stimulus. Novel learning is that stimulus. Learning a new language activates 5 distinct regions of the brain simultaneously and has been shown in studies from the American Academy of Neurology to delay dementia onset by an average of 4.5 years. Learning a musical instrument engages fine motor control, auditory processing, memory, and emotional regulation in a coordinated way that no other activity replicates. Even learning to cook a new cuisine from scratch, because it requires reading, sequencing, sensory attention, and motor skill, provides meaningful cognitive challenge. The practical approach. Choose one genuinely new skill every 3 to 4 months and spend at least 20 to 30 minutes per day actively learning it. The key word is actively. Watching someone else play guitar on YouTube is not learning guitar. Sitting with an instrument in your hands and struggling through a chord progression is the struggle. That productive discomfort is where the neurological benefit lies. It is the cognitive equivalent of resistance training. The resistance is the point. Robert, 79 years old, from Portland, Oregon, retired from a 40-year career as a civil engineer, and by his own description, spent the first 3 years of retirement doing very little that truly challenged his mind. He came to see me after noticing increasing difficulty recalling names and following complex conversations. His MRI showed age-appropriate changes. Nothing alarming, but his cognitive reserve scores were lower than I would have liked. I gave him one prescription. Pick something he had always wanted to learn and do it every day. He chose oil painting, something he had never done in his life. He was terrible at first, and he will tell you that himself. 18 months later, he had completed 23 paintings, joined a local art group, which addressed habit number 2 simultaneously, and his follow-up cognitive assessments showed improvement in 3 of 5 measured domains. Improvement, not maintenance. Improvement at 79, the synergy tip. Pair your daily cognitive challenge with omega-3 fatty acid intake, specifically DHA found in fatty fish like salmon, mackerel, and sardines, or in high-quality fish oil supplements. DHA is the primary structural fat of brain cell membranes. Research from the Framingham Heart Study shows that adults with higher DHA levels demonstrate significantly better neuroplasticity responses to cognitive training. In other words, DHA helps your brain absorb the benefit of what you're learning. It is the fertilizer beneath the seed. All scientific references for everything discussed in this video are available in the description below. I encourage you to read them, share them with your doctor, and have an informed conversation about what is right for your specific situation. Now, let me close with something I say from the heart. Because I have sat across from enough patients in the 75 to 85 age range to know that this period of life is too often treated as a countdown rather than a continuation. It is not. The research I've shared with you today points to something that medicine is only beginning to fully appreciate. That the body and mind at 75, at 80, at 85 retain a remarkable stubborn capacity for resilience, not in spite of age, but in dialogue with it. The 6 habits we discussed today, strategic hydration, resistance movement, consistent sleep, deliberate protein intake, daily social connection, and purposeful cognitive challenge are not about turning back the clock. They are about making the most extraordinary possible use of the time the clock still has. They are about carrying your own groceries, remembering your grandchildren's names, driving to your own appointments, laughing until your eyes water at dinner with someone who matters to you. That is what independence looks like. That is what quality of life means. And I promise you, I have seen it with my own eyes in patients who were told there was nothing left to optimize. It is never, ever too late to begin. If you're not subscribed to this channel yet, please do that right now. Every week I bring you research-backed senior-specific health information that I genuinely believe can add years of quality to your life. Click, subscribe, and make sure the notification bell is on so you never miss a video. And now I want to hear from you. Leave your age in the comments and tell me which of these 6 habits do you feel strongest in right now and which one do you want to build. I will be reading every response. This community is one of the most engaged and thoughtful I have ever been part of, and that is entirely because of you. I'll see you in the next one. Take good care of yourself because you are worth the effort.